All right. Now, I think people were trying to highlight stuff that Neil says that's um factual and stuff, and like this was funny. Let's make a clip of that moment in time. However, I got an issue with his issues. Counterpoint, you might say. So here we are at this.
A little more subtle, 80% of airplane crash survivors had studied.
Let's start with the beginning here.
I've changed my views 360. If you don't remember what 360 degrees is, it is that, okay? Now,
So the idea there is that, well, I mean, if you're gonna change your mind, like you can change it. Like when it comes to a degree, a direction of where you're going, it's like you can start with an idea that's like, oh, it's like this, but then it's like the total opposite of what you originally thought of. So that's a 180. So what you could do is be like, well, I thought it was a 180, and then when I re-examine the facts, I go back around and be like, it's like people who say, basic example, flat earthers, and then like you try to convince them that the earth is a globe, and they flip back around being all like, no, it's flat, because I don't see any proof myself. Clearly, I'm the only one capable of making a measurement. If that was true, do your own medicine. Please don't. But the idea is that you can have you could have a point of, it's not even hard to explain this
I
shit.
wonder, maybe the did not, but I'm pretty sure he was telling the truth with math ignorance.
I think that politician was like, and it depends on like the idea of it. You could think of like um, gun ownership, or how you deal with weed, or how you deal with um, curfew and whatever else. It's like, you know what? I thought we needed a curfew. Turns out we don't. It's a 360 on that one. Perfectly valid statement.
Half the schools in the district are below average. You know, this.
Half of the district schools are below average is because the upper bracket in that average is so much higher, so that when you get to half of them, the standard of what should be, they're still below the average of that. We're talking about two totally separate things here, Neil. You can't go off saying,
That's kind of what an average sort of is, right?
until you actually think about it for a second there. We're not talking about no bell curve. We're talking about a logarithmic. So we're talking about something that goes up as you go on, right? It's just a straight freaking line going up. So yeah, half of them are below average because the up is so far over here instead of in the middle and stuff, that it's like, yeah, the standards in schools and whatever else, they're below the average of what, you know, there's a lot of bad is what they're saying. It's not talking about like the number of schools. as being half is below average of the number of schools that exist. We're comparing two different aspects of reality. Half the water is frozen. How much of the water is frozen? Or how much in like a lake? If you were to say half the water's temperature is below average, right? You got some weird lakes. Anyway,
About half below. That's kind of what, not exactly maybe, but pretty much so. Technically, that would be, what would that be? The median, technically, but still. What the journalist probably meant to say was half the schools are below standards or below grade level. But they said below average, which meant they were mathematically illiterate. If that were actually true,
yeah, you literally made their point. They're saying below standards. And you realize that half and average are not the same thing? There's a way to make an average amount that's like it's still skewed over from half. Is there not? Like we're talking about some high extremes here, but like if the majority of stuff, it's like saying 98% of the wealth is in 2% of the people in the world, and it's like, so? That means that half the people have below average amount of the money. That's just a true statement. I don't know what you're talking about, Neil.
something would be wrong with the state of mathematics. Here's one, a little more subtle. 80% of airplane crash survivors had studied the locations of the exit doors on takeoff. So you say, well, I'm going to study where the exit doors are because I want to be in that 80%. That's a good percentage to be in, isn't it? That's good. So, but think about this. Wait, what's so think about, so here, let me just posit a question to you.
If you're gonna ask me, okay, wait, you survived, but you didn't know where the exit door was?
Suppose 100% of the dead people study the locations of the exit doors on takeoff. You would never know because they're dead. All right? So
you know, you could do a survey of how many people understood the instructions that was given, and they would have to do like a quiz thing, and then they would be certified as passengers who are aware. And then you would know they knew where the exit doors were. There's a way to do that. I knew I was going to say something like that.
this statistic is basically meaningless to act upon. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying.
8% of the people who survived the accidents knew where the exits were. That's because, you know what? 20% of the people on the plane don't need to know where the exits are to survive. And the other thing is, how many people in the plane are surviving? Is it 5? Then you got 4 people, and only one of them didn't know where the exit was. But then you got to ask, how the fuck do you not know where the exit is? And there's so few people in the plane. Anyway, moving on.
This one, you get this a lot. The state lottery is a tax on the poor. We've heard this because poor people spend a disproportionate fraction of their income on state lotteries. Does Washington have a state lottery? No, every state has. So, but really, I don't think of it this way. I think of it as the state lottery is a tax on all those people who never did well in their math class. That's how I think about it. How about buildings? You go into buildings. 80% of all buildings are.
Wait, hold up. The state lottery is a tax on the poor? What? I'm trying to figure out the statement that he's trying to make. I'm trying to figure out, first of all, state lottery and whoever else pays for it and whatever. The point is that everyone's pulling money into the pool, and someone's going to get that eventually. Now, there's 2 things about that. Is the lottery made state lottery, that means that it was paid for by tax money. So that means everyone pulled in, right, with their taxes, and they give it to some random person. So if the majority of people paying taxes is the poor, and let's put it this way. If the people, let's say the majority of people are poor, that like 80% of people are poor, 20% people are rich. Everyone pays the same amount of tax, maybe, which they don't, but let's say they did. That means that you're taking the same amount of money from a lot of poor people. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's another statement he got wrong, and I'm disturbed now.
Missing a 13th floor. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16. I feel like going into all these elevators with a Sharpie, crossing out the floor, putting it, and saying, that's the 13th floor. You're not fooling anybody.
Until you look at the schematics of the building itself, and the 13th floor is only accessible with a key, and that's like a security room, because if you're going like that high, like the top floors have a different set of precautions, right? So they might have that whole setup that's like for firefighting in the 13th floor. It doesn't exist anywhere else. So they want to make sure that it's all set up there, and then they can pump it up to the other floors. I don't fucking know. Look at the building itself and be like, is there an actual like floor that's not accessible?
This is 21st century America, and we have people afraid of the number 13. And what happens when you get to lobby and then you go to floors below the lobby? What do they call them? B for basement, SB, sub SBB. Can I buy a vowel, please? Like, what are you doing there? We have perfectly good nomenclature for going below the lobby level. They're called negative numbers, okay? We know how to do this.
Well, actually, that's also because it's not fair to say that there's there's a standard of like you're not just in the basement, right? You're usually in the parking lot, which also has like its flat level. It's still you can exit from there. It's not a negative. You're not underneath the surface of what is it, from here. Can you get out? Yes. So it's not really below now, is it? And then you got the above, which is everywhere else is ground, where everything is like normal at this level, and that's where everything's like the lobby floor or floor one. It's about the standard of where is normally most accessible. And then the lower levels, they're still accessible from the outside, but they don't exactly go below. That's when you start getting into sub-basements and shit.
It is well understood. But of course, this is America. There is a place in the world that has negative numbers. Oh, it's in Germany. Oh my gosh. Oh, by the way, is this a science museum? No, it's a history museum. Germany. That's a closer look in case you missed it. Okay?
Little Mary May.
Okay, so reason for negative numbers in places in an area that is like again, it is the actual basement, the -1, is still a different area than the common area, where everything's still accessible on that main level, right? You're able to just go outside immediately. Here, you have to go up the floor in order to get out. That's what I'm thinking. I don't really care about your fucking advertisement. So, there's reason for the -1.
Physics. All right. Now, this illustration requires an explanation. This is an ad for Holiday Inn. Now, admittedly, this is Holiday Inn England rather than Holiday Inn America. But Holiday Inn is an American company. Now, this is an ad for a new marketing plan where you can have what they're calling bed warmers pre-warm your bed for you before you go to sleep at night. Okay, so the people on either side are the bed warmers. Now, of course, he's looking at her and not him. Just interesting fact there. But this is a thermodynamically pointless exercise because the only way you're going to get the body heat from those two people is if they are naked in your bed.
That's not true. Fundamentally just not true. I literally lived in a garage in which, in order to stay warm and in order to keep my bed warm and me warm, I had to wear multiple layers of pajama pants and sweaters and be underneath multiple layers of blankets. I was firmly able to radiate in my bed so that my mattress that I was on wasn't keeping me cold. Or, let's face it, it was a couch. And literally radiating so much heat that the mattress would also be warm. If you have multiple layers on, you're still gonna radiate heat. You're not, if they're negative. No, you can wear like a thin layer of clothes, you can wear a thick layer of clothes. It don't matter. You're gonna radiate heat. It's called infrared radiation, motherfucker. You can't be wrong about this shit, Tyson. You can't be wrong about this because infrared radiation happens everywhere. So if you have enough heat inside of you, unless you have enough insulate, like they look like they have enough insulating layers that they're gonna not radiate any heat. But what if they are? What if they actually are able to radiate heat through their clothes, right? Normally, instead of a bed warmer, you would have like some pot that you had boiling hot water in, and that would heat up the bed, and you would have like lots of blankets, and it would keep the heat in there, and then you take out the pot and you go to sleep, burn yourself, but you would.
But for reasons of sanitation, they are not only fully clothed, they are fully insulated. If you're insulated, your heat is not coming out. It's staying.
Yeah, but you gotta realize, insulated, really? I don't think you're fully insulated. No. And the other thing about that, important to know, is that even if they're fully insulated, consider their heat and the warmth of just the warmth of being against their clothes and everything, right? In the bed and whatever else. Guess what? A lot of the cold air can't get to that bed. Insulated. Exactly. Which means you're inside of a cozy and that cold ain't getting to you. You're snuggly. I don't think you understand how thermodynamics work. You gotta think of the whole system. I'll tell you one thing. If I have the sides of my blankets open up to the air, I'm gonna freeze. Or my feet dangling off the edge of the bed and then not tucked in, gonna be cold. You got people on the other side of you. And here's the thing. What kind of the conditions for them is that they are also cold. Sometimes it's not about needing to thermally heat other people directly. It's maybe about just keeping the cold out so that they don't end up cold. I don't think you understand how it works, Neil.
Is within all of your clothing, so they are not heating the bed.
You like literally, you would not be out like if you were out in the winter and stuff. If you had to, maybe you would all be together inside of an insulated layer and stuff. But still, you would be still perfectly fine wearing all of your clothes, whatever you're wearing, as well, and you would know.
At all. Whoever thought this up never took Physics 101. If they did, then these two people would be naked.
You're saying that for shock value, and that's all.
I got another one. Is there any Bayer, the Bayer Corporation, do they have plants out here? No? Good, okay. This is an ad from Bayer where they are boasting that they send their scientists into the schools to help out. So Bayer employees volunteer in a hands-on, inquiry-based program, making science make sense, to help kids develop a lasting passion for science. You're on. Try to get them interested. Now, first of all, they've got a black kid and a woman. Like, apparently these are the problem cases that you got to get interested.
That's so dumb. the entire point is that they're trying to be inclusive. It doesn't matter who needs the education, we're going to give it to them. And that's the push everyone gave. So you calling them the problem ones? No, you're talking about a gifted class of people who are like exceptional. These are the exceptional ones, possibly. Of course, the woman, she's old enough, she should be exceptional. I'd say so. Black kid's like, hey, savant. There you go. Got a bunch of
How about
black
the white
savants.
kid with the tattoo just got off the motorcycle? Where's he? Okay? But, okay, so these are the problem kids. Okay.
That's such a bad way to think about it. What the hell?
Okay, the woman and the black kid. All right, let's see what we're trying to get them interested in. Try to get them interested in why lighter things fall faster than heavier things.
That feels good. When the fuck did this happen? Did you make a retraction yet? Because guess what? I made a whole video talking about how this is the facts. It's called aerodynamics. And lighter things not only falling faster than heavier things, but think about a balloon full of air, right? It's light, but it's got a bunch of air in it. You count the air as part of its weight. However, it floats really well. A balloon full of helium, it's still full of some object called helium. It has stuff in it. And that helium wants to float. The balloon deflated doesn't have the helium in it. It's a gram lighter. And it literally falls to the ground. Lighter object. Yeah. I don't think he I think this is one that he should have understood. Pretty simple logic there, but no one deflated his balloon, I guess.
That's a tough one. Huh?
And the thing is, everyone young, you make some statements, you think that you think they're true and whatever else. You learn stuff as you grow older. Maybe he's learned. You guarantee he's got to have learned. It's like everyone's capable of mistakes. Everyone's capable of misthinking about things. The balloon idea is not even that niche of a concept. But I went one step further and I talked about a balloon with someone else talked about how an object in a boat displaces the same amount of water once it gets out of the boat. To which I had a lot to say. I was not okay with that nonsense because first of all, like again, you can have a sandbag and a balloon. The sandbag's going to pull the balloon down, and it's going to displace water that is the volume of the balloon. Deflate the balloon, put the air into a pellet, and compress that air into a pellet, and then you end up with balloon. It all weighs the same. It all pushes down. It actually pushes down the boat more a little bit, and it displaces more water now because the air was holding it up before with the balloon. Now it's not. It weighs less, it's pushing down more, And when it goes out into the water, it actually displaces less because the balloon's deflated. It used to have 1 cubic foot of water displacement. Now it doesn't. I don't know about you, but a balloon, okay, maybe a balloon is not the best thing for an example of water displacement, because once you start pressuring with water against the balloon, it's not going to fare as well as air pressure. But let's say it did, and it had a cubic foot, however much the air in the balloon expanded, whatever, you get it. Once it's in the water, it'll displace that cubic foot of water. And once deflated, it won't do that anymore. But in the boat, it doesn't make any difference. It weighs down the boat just the same. It displaces water in the boat just the same as the deflated one. But the deflated one disperses less. That's something people in submarines and stuff need to understand. And like, I get it. But yeah.
It's tough because that doesn't happen in this universe.
But you're wrong is the problem. The deflated balloon scenario proves you're wrong. And I may have made a video about this before. I'm tired.
Yes, they would finally fix the ad. You're on. Try to get them interested in why lighter things fall as fast as heavier things.
That's not... That lighter things falling as fast as heavier objects. We talk about this as in a vacuum they seem to. And that's because, one, you're not falling. You were suspended. The Earth is moving towards you at a certain rate. Think about that.
It's the Galilean experiment.
Yeah.
But what's clear is that that previous ad was written by somebody. Nobody
He goes off on it, but he's actually fundamentally just wrong.
caught the error. It was typeset. It was laid out. It was printed. No one caught the error. Nobody in the entire chain of command.
That's because there isn't one. If a lot of people, I mean, it's possible that a lot of people can get stuff wrong, and then it just takes one person.
The first person who composed it to the copy editor of the magazine ad. So what's clear is that that whole chain of people are the ones who should be in this photo, and not these two kids.
I hate that perspective. I literally hate that perspective a lot. Don't harp on people for pulling people back in who are like, yeah, women get a chance to be educated and stuff. This is old. We're talking about old, with political issues that are old. Yeah, it was stupid back then. Who gives a shit? It's stupid. Because it's old. Lighter objects can fall faster, can float less than heavier objects. Lighter objects can float less than a heavier object easily. That's how buoyancy works. You can have an anvil on a boat. It's going to float anyway. It's a compound object. Who cares? And then you can have a lighter object. It's just a penny. But it'll sink down to the bottom of that pool no problem. Because there's nothing in its way. There's nothing holding it up. No balloon, no nothing. It's just going to fall. I don't got to keep harping on this, but I hate that perspective. It's
Have a security gig. This place has been shut down for years.
yeah, 5 nights at Grumpy's. Yeah.
The American Physical Society meets, it's the sort of my professional physics organization, and choose a city. Occasionally, this one time we met in Las Vegas, but this is what happened here.
Physicists in town, lowest casino take ever. I mean, you gotta admit, if physicists are in town, are they there to do gambling? You know a bunch of numbers, you know probabilities, you probably won't gamble, therefore, yeah.
Vegas asked them never to return to the city.
I mean, also if you're counting cards, yeah.
We're talking about America, people. Bad engineering. What is this? Okay, levees broke in New Orleans, 2005. If you read accounts of this, they say, oh, Katrina came in and Hurricane Katrina, bad hurricane. Excuse me, pause, back up. Do you know Katrina was category 5 in the Gulf? On landfall, it was category 3. It had already passed over New Orleans. People were sweeping up some of the broken branches in the street. Then the levees broke. The city survived the hurricane just fine. What it is they didn't survive was faulty engineering. That was the problem in 2005. And I submit to you that you look at these images and people hoping to get rescued from their rooftops, and you ask yourself, what country is this?
I don't know the full story about the levees, but I would venture to say that once the hurricane was able to be gone, stuff may have still happened, like, I don't know, flooding. That's like kind of contributive. So, doesn't mean there isn't a correlation there. But it's not like the hurricane itself did it, unless of course it did.
Some of us who are old enough, we used to see film loops of third world countries where you see an absence of infrastructure, people towing, their belongings with an ox through mud. And you say, oh, that's the third world, we live in America. What country is this? In the middle of Manhattan, a steam pipe explodes. People died. Steam? Don't we know how to move steam from one place to another? Wait a minute, we're actually still using steam? What? Okay. I'm not going far back in time to get these stories. Bridge collapses. I-35, Minnesota. A bridge collapsed? You go through Europe, there's still bridges standing from the Roman Empire. We can't put a bridge over that?
We've been through this. It's because they knew about, what was it, limestone or something? And how that stuff will... It's not about construction or whatever. It's about literal physics. You don't think to put stuff into there that are like it's going to expand and fill those cracks when the water comes in. When water comes in, usually you build stuff with the basic standard everyday, the stuff that is everywhere, a common practice by everybody that you get. Like, this is not even, this is the standard of literally every other place. You talk about old times when they knew about certain chemistries, practices that have been lost for centuries, and you're complaining that we don't know something that we couldn't have known because we still didn't know until way after you made your video? Woo! Hot take.
All right? That's not a river, this is a brook. All right? What? What country is this? Let's go to Los Angeles. Trains collide. People get hurt. Some people die. You think we would have figured this one out? A train comes this way, you don't send another train the opposite direction on the same track. That would be like commandment number 1. All right, Railroads 101. A crane collapsed. Back in New York, a crane collapsed.
Okay. Trains colliding, how does that happen? Step 1. The scheduling was either so tight that a malfunction does not allow enough time for a correction, for a speed change. And guess what? Trains are going so fast, it takes them a good while before they're able to stop. So in order to do a correct thing, if you're having the trains be able to go on to the same track in opposite directions, they might be just, it's not hard for that kind of malfunction to happen, and it only takes one, and then you have a collision. That's all it takes. It's not that they were both on the same track in the beginning. It's that when you try to change the switch track, it's like, oh shit. And then you had no time. It was going to collide. Or they had lots of time and they had no switch track to veer the train off of the first track. So they can't slow it down. 2, there's no lever to flip that would get it off that track quick enough. The other thing that happens is of course, negligence with timing and communication and stuff.
What, you can't hold up a crane? What country is this? Hurricanes come. We say...
Okay, the crane thing collapsing. You realize, fellas, you know how they got those brackets and it's made by all these triangles? You break one, you stress one of those, and it breaks, it collapses, it turns into nothing because it can't hold up itself. It's supportive on all sides. So all it takes is one failure point and the entire crane's going to fall down. That's how they're constructed. They're not a solid construction. They are just like the electrical wire cantilever towers, right? And it's also why they have the wires on both sides of the tower to balance the load, to make it less likely that all the wires are going to just pull on one side and tip it over. So they got to balance it and put it on both sides. It's one of the things. But it's like, if you have a crane, it's naturally unbalanced. It takes just one thing for it to fail.
Now, here's what's interesting. I think these people already know about this, okay? So, this is useless information to all these people. Now, here's what happens. If you don't have scientists and engineers in your midst, when a hurricane comes or some kind of natural disaster, your first thought is stockpile food and run. But if you're an engineer or a scientist and the disaster is coming, you say, how can I avert that disaster? I foresee a day where a hurricane forms in the Gulf. You put in some kind of apparatus that taps the energy of that hurricane, and that energy drives the electricity of the city that would otherwise be destroyed by the hurricane had it continued to go through. That's the
That's not
kind of
bad.
thinking that needs to go on in this world.
I mean, yeah, you could do something like that, but you're realizing you're talking about a hurricane. In order to get something to work with hurricanes, you need either a gigantic Zeppelin system or you need like something that's able to literally take the heat that drives the hurricane and you gotta make it so that it's more balanced, right? Am I dumb? Hurricanes happen because as hot air rises and whatever else, you get the wind. So what if you had it so that you could control the temperatures of the area so that such that it becomes a balanced temperature with no extreme points so that you can't make a hurricane happen in the first place? I mean, you got cities, they have different variations of height and heat mapping. So, does that have anything to do with it? Apparently not. Okay, so then think about it. How would you control a hurricane? Some powerful fans? Some kind of giant structure that, like, supposedly reaches up into the heavens and is like, I'm gonna mess up with the winds. And it's like, man, it's just happening on stratosphere. Release some chemicals to change the temperature. It's like, that's possible. Would you want to do that? No. In order to do something like what he's talking about, you're asking something big we're not gonna do. We just aren't gonna do. We can't or won't. It's a little much. Right? Sensational, actually, whatever.
What country is this? I'm not going far back in time here. This is, yesterday's news. What country are we living in? There's more what's going on. Profound science illiteracy in this country.
Gulf of
Here's a
Mexico
book
oil spills,
that I
yeah,
read before I
friggin'
came here.
or okay, look. The thing about oil, you're dealing with stuff under pressure and whatever else, and if something happens that makes that pressure suddenly build up, like your rigid body pumps are not designed for such an explosion. They're not designed to just suddenly have some weird offshoot expansion bubble that's like able to take all of that happening. We don't have bladders on our oil rigs because we're stupid, or it's expensive and hard to develop a bladder that's big enough and powerful enough to handle all of that. But one way you could do it is you could have it so that the oil flows in from the bottom and then the air takes out so that it can be a solid state bladder. You don't have to make an expanding bladder. You just have to make the space easily be able to be filled up quickly. But we're talking about a gigantic space and you're normally sucking up this much oil. You're not used for it. There's no way to prepare for that. Shut up.
I've read it in its entirety.
Oh, you could? Yeah, sure.
I heeded its advice. I wanted to make sure I showed up for you this evening. So someone has to write this book. An editor says, hey, that's a good idea for a book. A publisher publishes it, they put it on the shelf, and then people buy it. How about this one? And this, I just is one. How to survive says, hey, that's a good idea for... I wanted to make sure I showed up.
How to defend yourself against alien abduction. I mean, first of all, depending on the type of beings they are, if they're like physical beings in a regular dimension, as we all expect them to be because the fourth dimension is disproven, fuck off. The whole thing about aliens is usually just have a shotgun or something, because they can't. There's a lot of things you don't. But also, are we talking about the aliens, or are we talking about like what kind of aliens are we talking about? And does it matter? Does it really matter?
For you this evening. So someone has to write this book. An editor says, hey, that's a good idea for a book. A publisher publishes it, they put it on the shelf, and then people buy it. How about this one? And this, I just is one. How to survive 2012. Tactics and survival places for the coming pole shift. Pole shift? Where'd they get that from? The pole? The end of the world? In there is the Mayan calendar? Because clearly the...
Okay. Clearly, anyone knows that the magnetic poles and everything else is driven by a lot of things, but one of those things is the core of the freaking Earth. And it does shift. The question is when, how frequently, and like you're gonna end up with a lot of things.
Mayans knew more about astrophysics than any of us do today, clearly. And wait a minute.
Actually, the Mayans could have known about the poles. I mean, magnets were... How long did people start using magnets? But also, like... I don't know, you analyze... People analyze birds and they figure out they're using magnetic stuff. It's guiding them and whatever. I don't know how long that idea has been around.
Next Saturday. Whoa, next Saturday. Whoa. What country is this? What millennium is this? So what's interesting is originally they said the world was going to end May 21st, but then it was revised, and so apparently the 21st is only Judgment Day. So Jesus is coming on the 21st, and I'm guessing that he's really pissed, okay? So, at human beings. So 5 months later is the asserted end of the world, as evidenced right here, the end of the world, and there's not much sand left in that clock. You can translate this into any language. There's an audio reading of this, and you can get the printer-friendly PDF version of this account.
Look, Christians be stupid. Why would God, who has had literally no PR campaign since AD, like what, 1 AD? He's had no PR campaign that he has run ever. People have run campaigns, but has he run a campaign? No, he's been silent ever since then. If he wasn't just silent in the first place, if he exists. So, the whole thing about, we are literally, according to the ideas of what that whole thing about what the tribulation and the rapture should be about, is that when, I think one of the things was, if you have everyone able to witness the information of God and how you should, you know, do the stuff and be loyal to God. Once everyone knows about that, then the end times is here. And basically, everyone is able to know about it because we've been everywhere. We talked about it all to everyone, except for the future. So the thing is, Christians be silly. They think that, oh, some big reckoning has to happen because things have gotten so out of hand. But, like, or this other condition, which has nothing to do with people and stuff. It's like, really, why would it matter to a God to be like, now at this specific time, this specific circumstance of everyone knowing about God and be like, you gotta pick him or you don't. Like at that time, and only that time. Like not in the future when you can get more people on your side. Not, you know, he literally ended the world in water, supposedly, with the flood. So the whole thing about like ending it again, you gotta know that if you have a correct campaign or if you work long enough about it, like apparently according to the ideas, the population was in the thousands. Wasn't even millions, definitely not billions. And oh, the majority of people are bad, doing terrible things and whatever else. Literally all you have to do, in most cases, everyone has understood this, and an omnipresent God would understand this, is that you go one generation of a lot of shit happening that people don't like, the next generation's gonna be like, fuck you, I'm doing my thing, and I don't give a damn what you think. That's literally every next generation is like that. So you had your issues and thoughts and things, and like back in the day, people were willing to go and do unsafe work, and now they are so educated and so understanding of the dangers of things that they're not concerned with, oh, I'm needing to make sure that I'm safe so I can get home and everything else and not worry about like all this. The thing about Christians, and I don't know, and I should really look into it again, I guess. It'd be nice to look into it again, maybe, just to understand what the hell were they thinking when they talk about the rapture and all that, when they talk about the tribulation and all that. Because personally, I would think the Dark Ages was all of that. It happened, and the world didn't end, and the stuff isn't, and it's not gonna get so much worse that we're just gonna abandon God entirely in a majority enough that it's like it's important to destroy the world or punish people or pull out all the good people or whatever else. We already know from the movie Left Behind and all that, you get people in the planes controlling the planes just suddenly stop controlling the planes. You got planes dropping everywhere. That's a bunch of useless death. God said in the quotes, God is said to have said, even these little birds, I don't care what birds, These birds, he cares for them. No, he doesn't. We got drought, fire, all sorts of calamity. We got stupid viruses and fungus and whatever else things happen to snakes and animals who are deer getting fucking fingernails on their eyeball or whatever keratin buildups, all made out of stuff. Looks like a bunch of horns just all over their body. Like, this has happened to rabbits and stuff. I don't know what's happening with birds, but I mean, how much more would he care about you? He don't care about shit. Why would a loving God allow a lovely, majestic deer to have tumatoma? I don't like it. That's because he doesn't control every aspect of life.
What country is this? I'll show you where this. Answering the question, did human beings, as we know them, develop from an earlier species of animals? This is simply evolution by natural selection. So if you're this, so this is countries ranked, sort of Western countries and countries that are otherwise developed by the modern use of that word. So if you're this sort of the green bar, it means yes to that question, which means that you're convinced by evolution. If you're this sort of amber bar on the right, it means no. And if you're the white in between, it means you're unsure. So America's got to be up there somewhere. No, Iceland, Denmark, Sweden, France, Japan, Britain, Norway, Belgium, Spain, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, Hungary, Luxembourg, Iceland, Slovenia, Finland, Czech Republic, Estonia, Portugal, Malta, Switzerland, Slavic Republic, Poland, Austria, Croatia, Romania, Greece, Bulgaria, Lithuania, Latvia, Cyprus, United States of America, edging out Turkey by a nose. There it is. What country is this? Maybe
It's like what? Thinking that, look, I don't know why people would believe, but it's like, it don't matter.
we should just move back to the caves. Let's analyze it a little further. Here's a map. This map has the area of each country apportioned according to their surface area on a globe, which means it's a normal map. Okay, so what we're about to do is morph the area of each country according to how much peer-reviewed science research is conducted in that country. Okay, let's do that. So this is a measure of who's doing the most science in the world. Some countries will shrink relative to that area you see here. Others will expand depending on how active they are in science. So let's check out what happens when we do this. Well, the United States is sitting fat and pretty there, I'd say. That's America. Yeah. Okay. Wait, what's that big purple region away? Whoa, what was that? What's that purple? Whoa. What country is that? Japan, kicking major science butt on the map right there. One of the great tragedies is Africa shrinking to nothing in area on this chart compared with the area it actually occupies in the world. That is a modern day tragedy right there, given the...
Look, if you were to ask me, on the planet, which, do it matter where the science takes place. And I would venture to say that Australia has a lot of shit going on with animals that are crazy. And that alone is science. And they have contributed way more than that map depicts. So, in that regard. So, I would say I don't care about how many other places do more about in other things. Australia is not as tiny as all that. I don't think that's accurate at all. I don't believe it. And I'll live there, but I still defend Australia.
Resources that are prevalent within it. Europe is huge. They split formerly Eastern Europe, that's in blue, from Western Europe, that's in those shades of pink. So, and there you have Brazil. That's the aerospace industry kicking in there. All right, so you look at this, you say, hey, we're doing pretty good. Tyson, what are you complaining about? Okay. This is the wrong map. What you want to look at is not how much science is going on. No. You want to look at the change in how much science is going on from the year 2000 to 2010. That's the trend line. That is the future of the world. Compare the difference in published research papers in all sciences between 2000 and 2010. And you get this. Europe is even bigger. Japan is even bigger. China is huge. Africa is even smaller. This is the changing landscape of the world. As everyone else understands the value of innovative investments in science and technology in ways that we do not, we slowly fade. This is the fading that worried me when Russia says, oh, you guys want to join us for a mission that will save your West Coast? You say, well, sure, we got our space program. We lead the world in space. How about space? We've got some faulty memory going on. One of them is that we're space pioneers. That's a faulty memory. Okay? Yuri Gagarin was launched into orbit 50 years ago, April 12th. Okay? We all know that. Did you know, however, that he, and I tweeted this, by the way, he was the fourth mammal to achieve this feat after dogs, guinea pig, and mice. Then we sent a human, they're all Russian, a Russian dog, Laika, guinea pig and mice, then Yuri Gagarin. So let's look at the full list. Dogs, in order, dogs, guinea pigs, mice, Russian human, chimpanzee, American human. Does that sound like we're pioneers here? We come behind Russian mice. The Russians did all this first. They came up with the rocket formula, for goodness sake. This is the formula that tells you that most of the fuel in your rocket that's yet to be burned requires fuel to lift it to a place so that you can later on burn it. That's why the Saturn V rocket, 32 stories tall, the astronauts are in the up little bitty, and all the rest is a bomb, basically. All right?
Not wrong about that.
First satellite, first animal, first human, first woman, first black person in space, first to land on the moon with the robots, first lunar rover. They photographed the far side of the moon, Earthrise from the moon, Venus, Mars, spacewalk. Now we have a few firsts. We have a couple. First space docking, first to land on the moon. We crossed the asteroid belt first. First to achieve hyperbolic velocity that escapes the solar system. Okay, but still. This is hardly what you would call pioneering behavior.
I would say humans are the ones managing all of that. It's not like you see a mouse Like, you can compare the Soviets to the rest of the world and whatever. Their contribution, cool, good. But you're talking about, like, us versus mice. No, we put them there. It was a person who put them in there, launched them up. What are you talking about? I don't... Whatever. When he talks about stuff like the lighter object, that part makes me laugh because he should know better. I don't care. He can get stuff wrong. It's fine sometimes. That was like, how many things did he get wrong in that one? I don't know. There are too many. It's a majority of the video that he got wrong, and so I made a video about it. And I may have made a video about it again because, like, man, I'm tired.